It's the end of a busy week for the Trump administration, highlighted by the president's address to a joint session of Congress. In that speech, Mr. Trump laid out his vision for immigration reform. But he's not the only one with some ideas. Khanna, a Democratic Congressman from California, joins us now because he has an idea, too. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, so welcome. It's good to meet you. Some of you and your colleagues in the House introduced a bill, and it's called the H-1B and L-1 Visa Reform Act of 2017. You say that this is going to really clamp down on the abuse of the current program, right?
Yes.
What is wrong with the current program, and how will your bill better it?
Well, it's a bipartisan bill, and it starts with the premise that immigrants have contributed a tremendous amount to Silicon Valley, to technology. But there have been cases where workers have been brought in and paid below market wages, or have been asked to actually train, American workers have been asked to train their replacements, and that needs to stop. So we need to stop the abuse so that we can have the program as it was intended.
And they're bringing in these workers because?
They're bringing in these workers because they want to have cheaper workers. And often the people being laid off are older. They're in their 60s. It's often age discrimination. Sometimes American workers are asked to actually train their replacements. And some of these companies have more than 50% H-1B visa holders. So what this bill says is if you can't have more than 50% H-1B visa holders. So some of the abuse that's happened needs to be reformed, and then I think more people would support the program.
So you'd like to tighten things up and make sure that everyone's following the rules.
Absolutely, and so that American workers aren't at a disadvantage. You can't just bring in folks at a cheaper wage who, by the way, fear that their employer, if they get fired, they would be deported from the country, and so the employers get away with treating them unfairly, and that depresses American wages.
In his speech this week, the president pushed for adopting a merit-based immigration system. Is that something that you think that you can support?
Well, I think it has to be comprehensive. I mean, the president's thrown out a lot of ideas, but we don't know what he's going to do with folks who are undocumented, what the path is to citizenship. He has been, as you saw in the previous report, talking about deportations without due process. And whatever you think on the issue, everyone ought to be entitled to a lawyer, ought to be entitled to due process. So the president hasn't offered any real specifics on these issues.
Well, the merit-based program, though, he claims will be able to create more jobs and for people coming in, correct? I mean, like legitimate, good-paying jobs.
Well, I think what's going to create good-paying jobs is if he helps invest in the workforce here. He needs to invest in apprenticeship programs and tech training programs. That's what's going to create American jobs. And one of the things that the president didn't mention really was community colleges or education or apprenticeship programs for folks with those jobs in the United States.
Can we turn to the Attorney General? In his speech, Attorney General Sessions' recusal actually was one of the low points this week with the president's speech on Tuesday, one of the high points. But you've said that recusing himself, meaning Attorney General Sessions now, it's just not good enough. What do you want?
Well, this is not a partisan issue. When I worked for the Obama administration and I had a security background check, they asked, did you have any contacts with foreign governments? And I had to disclose them. If I had been misleading about that, I wouldn't have gotten my job. Senator Sessions, when he testified in front of the Senate, misled folks about whether he had contact with the Russian ambassador. And that's unacceptable. And so he ought to do the right thing, take accountability, and resign.
But he said that his actions or his conversations during that time, he was as a senator. It wasn't as somebody from the Trump administration. Not good enough?
I understand the distinction he's trying to draw, but the question he was asked is, did you ever have contact with Russian officials? Now, he could have said, yes, I did, but they were in my official capacity. He chose not to. And then he was asked a follow-up in writing by Senator Leahy to clarify, did he ever have contact with Russian officials? Again, he said no. So it's the integrity issue. We're a nation, a nation of laws, and he really wasn't forthcoming.
Dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
And more than dotting the I's, it's just being forthcoming with Congress.
So speaking of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, Obamacare. And we're waiting to see what the Trump administration comes up with. That was a big major point of the president's campaign. But yet we still haven't seen anything as of yet. Here's what our vice president had to say about when we may see.
I'm going to make you a promise. You heard the president say it and give direction to the Congress. and it's just going to start happening in just a few days. We're going to repeal Obamacare once and for all and eliminate all its mandates and taxes and intrusion into your personal lives and into the lives of your business.
So they're promising something soon. Do you think that will happen?
One of the problems is we haven't been able to see the bill. So this has been done behind closed doors. I don't know what the timeline is because members of Congress aren't being able to read the details. What we've heard through leaks is that they're offering a tax credit, which is wholly inadequate. I mean, millions of people would lose their insurance because that tax credit isn't going to be enough for them to get insurance.
One quick thing before I let you go. You're a freshman member of Congress. Congratulations.
Thank
But
you.
I did see this tweet that was on your Twitter feed that you shared with all of your followers. And that is you were eating at the cafeteria. And you said, growing up, I never thought I'd be elected to Congress and Indian food would be offered in the cafeteria.
Well, I've got an unlikely story. I mean, my grandfather spent 4 years in jail with Gandhi in the Indian independence movement. I was born in Philadelphia to immigrant parents. I never thought I'd get to serve in Congress, let alone I go to the cafeteria and they're serving Indian food, which shows the country is
That's America, right?
That's America. And despite the harshness of the 2016 presidential election, we have the most diverse Congress today in American history, and I'm very optimistic about the future.
Good to know, Congressman.
Thank you
Thanks
for having
again
me.
for your time.